Oh, that's the wrong one. Apologies. There we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome back to Champions Sports Series. My name is Max Ring. The action tonight, alongside, after not being in the comms box for the qualifiers, his first time in a commentary box as well, Lucas Seif. How are you, Lucas, on this Tuesday?
Yeah, man, I'm feeling great. I'm very excited for the upcoming race. 29 laps of Australia, some great teams, some very good looking lineups as well. I think we're in for a banger of a race. What are you saying, Max?
Yeah, I think we are going to be in for quite a treat tonight. Of course, first round of the season. Last week we had the qualifiers. But here today, the season kicks off. Reigning champion Shazoo look to try and retain their title. Somebody else enter that fray. Maybe snatch it right from their hands. Of course, we are here for Season 2. Going out of the qualifiers here, Lucas, you probably think that the team looking the best to challenge Shazoo are Venturi after their fantastic display last week.
Yeah, they had very good qualifying sessions, obviously. I mean, I still think that FER are always going to be a shout. They've always been one of the top community teams. They've got depth, which is what you need in an event like this, where sometimes you don't know if your team has the right attendance or not. Obviously, the best lineups right now are looking like SCI and Venturi, but sometimes depth is all you need across the span of 12 races, which is what we have here. That is what is the best.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. Of course, talent is a big factor when it comes to succeeding in these community events. But of course, we are now getting underway for qualifying. The drivers have made their way onto the circuit. So let's now head track side, where we're currently on board with Raphael for FER. But the first driver onto the road be Omar Adam for Shazoo, of course, the reigning champions. Actually, no, it's not going to be Omar, it's going to be his teammate of that is going to be, if I can look onto the screen, this SCI Grip, as they make their way now through the 9 and 10 chicane. But, of course, qualifying around Australia, not too important, Lucas. So, if you have a disappointing opening qualifying of the season, it's not the end of the world.
No. I mean, there's a lot of overtakes you can make in this race anyway. Obviously, you have 4 DRS zones, very powerful throughout the race. It's quite hard to get out of DRS range to gap anyone. So the chances of you even starting further down the pack and making your way up is fairly good. Also, a lot of opportunities for a crash here, always very close to barrier, it being a city race. So it always produces a great qualifying as well.
It certainly does, and I think SCI Grip is Joe Murphy in the Alpine. So as he now makes
the grip guy.
as he now makes his way through turn 5 and out of that first sector. Oh no, sorry. Francesco Largo is SCI Grip and Joe Murphy is Omar Adams. Their name didn't update on the game for some reason. But anyway, DRS is now open for Francesco Largo as he makes his way into the 9 and 10 chicane. A 42.6 in that middle sector. Jabby at the moment, but will come under a little bit of traffic. Of course, this is going to be the benchmark of the season from both of the reigning champion drivers. Their way now through the final part of this lap, this final sector, down to third gear for turn 13, and then slowly bring the power up through the final corner. Easy to loop the rear of the car. DRS open for Largo as he makes his way to the line. The benchmark is a 1:14.4, which is going to be instantly matched, or is it displaced? Actually, 2 tenths shy there for Joe Murphy. Shazoo coming out strong.
Yeah, that's a very good lap, 14.4. We're probably going to be looking at a pole position of about 14.0, 14.1, so already a very solid banker. I don't think it will be displaced, but let's see Raphael come across over 5 tenths under, and yeah.
Looking so far as Ryan Grob now makes his way into those 14.9. So that lap time so far from Francesco Largo really holding on strong. Is that Conrad Bowe making his way to the line? Yes, it is. And it's third fastest for Conrad Bohm. Just slots in behind Joe Murphy. That was his teammate making his way to the line. That was Thomas to a liar. Unfortunately, I think invalidated that lap. Lucas Shea now goes up into second place. Still we're 10th
Ooh, very
shy
nice.
from Francesco Largo. What about his teammate Morera? He's just starting a lap time at the moment. Zalan Bieda potentially on a lap. Yes, he is coming through the final part of this circuit. Let's sound ball with Zalan Bieda to see what he can do for FVR, for his teammate, only down in 10th place at the moment.
Yeah, so at the top, as we previously said, Florian now goes first, even for TRT. It's looking to be very close there. Obviously, the two SCIs are quite up there. Lucas Shea puts in a great lap for Venturi. Nando Moreira has got more experience than anyone else on here. He's undoubtedly going to put quite a solid lap up there. And the TRTs look great. Florian on pole by 0.04 of a second. And Valentino Labella not far behind, just 3/10. Oh! Big moment for Nando. Nearly crashes out, breaks his front wing. That lap's not going to count. He's going to have to go back to the pits.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board of that one there. Fernando Moreira, a big swap of the rear end. It just sent the car around, went a little bit wide, and the car just completely went on him. And as you were saying, the man with the most experience, look out for him. He instantly makes a mistake, putting to pay. That experience doesn't
Commentator's
mean
curse,
everything.
isn't it?
And yes, a commentator's curse. Two rights as we see Daniel Hope now coming to the line for AZR, his teammate of Ariane Sanger, currently 7th fastest across the line for Hope, only 16th. He's quite a way shy of his teammate, around about 0.5 of a second. Plenty of time in this session to get back underway, as we now see the only drivers out on the circuit once again on their outlaps, I mentioned, are Hamanza and also, of course, that will be Joe Murphy in 4th place. But the Williams driver for IRT, let's see what he can do as he's starting second push lap. This could be his first valid lap of the session.
Yeah, I'm seeing quite a lot of names I do recognise, but further down the grid, I'm also seeing a few new names who I think could maybe potentially show something for it. If you look at Anibi right now, doing pretty solid 8th and 9th place. I haven't heard of either of these guys, but they're doing a pretty solid job to be in front of the likes of Ryan Gross and even Rafael Kunch. If you do know, you know that he is my son, but yeah, it's not looking great for him right now, is it? Down in 12th place. FVR, I said they might do season, but Zaylen's not even placed a lap yet, and Rafael down in 12th. It's not looking great, is it?
No, it is not looking great at all so far for FVR, but of course still a long qualifying session ahead, still 10 minutes to get lap time on the board. But yeah, I think your son's letting you down ever so slightly here, Lucas, with being outside the top 10 at the moment, but as we're still on board with the IRT driver of Hamamza as he now makes his way into the final part of this lap. Of course, just behind him will be Joe Murphy pushing on. Here comes the Williams driver to the line. What's this going to be for the IRT man? 17th and 2/10 off the closest lap time. 4/10 off the closest lap time. So a really tricky lap time there from the Williams man, as we now see Joe Murphy on a lap time. What's this middle sector split looking like for Joe? And he's up by 1/10 of a second still, so lost about 1,000th in that middle part of the lap. But this final sector oh so crucial. Can he rival Florian Van Selter and his teammate Francesco Largo for the front row of the grid?
Yeah, it gets it nicely down here, gets a rotation and down to third, short shift to fourth, up and away, opening the DRS just now, gets a lot of use out of that and slow them down a little bit, comes through the line, and that is provisional pole position for Joe Murphy. Hi, Ruby.
It certainly is indeed. Provisional pole there going the way of Joe Murphy. Brilliant lap time there from the Alpine man. Odin for Anobi, who of course were able to make their way through only just about, but he's invalidated. He's that. What would it have been, though? We'll stay on board with the kick Sauber as he now makes his way to the line. Currently on 14.8, would have been a 14.7. That would have put him up only one place, but still a big improvement on that lap time. We have one of the Haas cars coming to that's Ariane Sanger. Who else is on the lap? Lucas Shay's on a lap, and he's up by a tenth of a second in that first sector. What are we looking like in the middle sector split here for Lucas? Up by a tenth of a second. So, a big moment. Both Venturi cars have had a moment now through 9 and 10. It's invalidated the lap, and potentially some setup issues here, Lucas, causing some unstable rear ends.
Yeah, you got to go back to the drawing board if your suspension geometry is making you do this in the qualifying. What could it do in the race? You know, in the race, you're more likely to understeer. You're more likely to go into the curb. If you're already struggling with that in qualifying, you don't want to go in the race. Yeah, Nando Moreira now.
Certainly didn't want to deal with any rear instability in the race as Nando Moreira comes up to the start-finish line. Not set a lap time so far across the line. Only 7th fastest.
Seven.
Do you think as well here, Lucas, potentially that spin on that previous lap? Of course, 9 and 10, such a high-speed part of the circuit. It's where you can find a lot of time if you have confidence through there. And that little spin, that potentially just ruffled his feathers ever so slightly. Potentially meant he's not pushed as much.
Yeah, potentially. This would technically be his banker. We're a few minutes into the session now, and if you spin the first time, you're always going to lack a little bit of confidence. You're going to try and play it safe. You want to set a banker no matter what. So, yeah, I mean, there should be more seconds to come, if anything. You might even look at it in a positive light. There should be more time to come in his next lap, but he needs to make sure that that's not going to kill his confidence for his last and final lap.
Yeah, hopefully it does not do that. And that one, that was just a sightseeing. Napasan Bieda now moves his way up into 8th. That now puts Hermanza properly at the bottom of the field, and both the IRT drivers are down at the bottom. I say that Spezzi moves himself
goes
up
11th.
into 11th place. So a nice lap time there from Spezzi. It's Valentino Labella on a lap time. He's invalidated. I think he would have been on the lap, but he's unfortunately validated time. I think, unless Florian Vanzelt's putting on. No, he's just gone off the road and invalidated. I want to say that is the end of these second runs. No, oh no, that was Raphael moving himself up into 3rd place. Raphael. That's a brilliant lap time there, Lucas, from your son, who's put himself onto the 2nd row of the grid. Ever so slightly missed out on that front row.
Yeah, just 1200s. You couldn't get more close in a competitive session like this. You know, you always want to start in the front grid. Australia, P2 has the best chances with all these DRS. But yeah, I'm proud of him. I'm proud of my son. Proud of my son for that one.
Yeah, it seems like a very good lap time indeed. Shame we missed it, but of course we still have a long old way to go. And actually, Joe Murphy's now started his next attempt. I think this could be a final attempt if he's not able to get the lap time on the. If he is able to get the lap time on the board. Actually, no. With 5 minutes left to go, he could be able to get all 4 runs.
He should have enough time. Another run.
His teammate actually of Francesco Largo goes to the top. So a brilliant lap time there from Largo. 14.2. So a 10th clear of his teammate Joe Murphy, who's down by 300ths in the first sector. Now looking at the middle sector split. Of course, can't find too much time. It's only a corner, but he has found about 300ths of a second through that middle part of the lap. So through this final sector, can he rival his teammate? And are we going to potentially see after these final runs a Shazoo 1-2 to start off the season? The reigning champions, can they hit back at the very top? There's Valentino Labella, who's just keeping out the way.
He's invalidated.
Invalidation. I think he might have just got a little bit of dirty air there from Valentino Labella. But of course, no one could be blamed there. He tried to get out of the way, did Labella. And unfortunately for Joe Murphy, he's invalidated. He can come into pit lane now, switch on to his final set of tyres. And
I couldn't quite see what car that was, but potentially an infringement there, you could say, with the dirt that we could be seeing a report very soon coming from SCI, but I'm not sure. I think you can't really do much about that one. He was off the racing line.
Yeah, I think that was very much just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
For Valentino Labella and Joe Murphy. So yeah, I think that one really was just one of those instances where you just catch the car at the wrong moment and just yourself, unfortunately, up an invalidation for somewhat dirty. Yeah, but we're now in that lull of the session. I say that we're about to get underway for the final runs, probably in the next 10 seconds. But at the moment, Shazoo holding on strong here, Lucas, and the reigning champions have started qualifying off quite well. If they are able to manage these final runs nicely, could see at least a first and a second row start for them.
Yeah, that would be massive. You know, once you start the season, if you're starting it with a 1-2, the confidence for the rest of the season, you know, you're in a great position. But at the same time, if you start seeing some bad results here or there, you can only go down. So it can also kill your confidence. It's just about how you go forward. But what's really surprised me is Valentino Labella down in 13th, ETA drivers, Jonas Opel and Ryan Gross as well. They could be higher up, could be lower. RSC, you know, I thought would be looking to get into the mid-table, you know, getting that P5, P6 in constructors. Right now, they're P19 and P16. I think 9th or 10th would be their position as a team. So it's not really where they'd want to be. Obviously, they've got some money back in them. We all know. So you don't really want to be down there, do you?
No, you don't at all, but this is where you put your money where your mouth is and perform on your lap time. It's just a final lap, no chance for redos. No, of course, other opportunities. No more coming into the pit lane, putting on a fresh set of tyres, scrubbing off that final lap and going again. We are now getting underway for these final laps, and we're starting off with Alex for Onib as they make their way down into the first corner, down to 6th gear. Usually most drivers go to 5th. Of course, track limits around this circuit determined by the yellow lines, not the white. This makes it a little bit easier to pick up an invalidation as you then make your way through 3 and into 4. Slowly bring that throttle back up. A big moment.
Ooh,
and that's surely going to be lap over for Alex. But luckily for the King Sauber, I was about to say that he does have enough time for another run. And behind him is Nando Moreira on a lap. Let's have a look at this first sector split here, Lucas.
Let's see here. We get 25.9. He is just over half a tenth up on his previous time. Right now, that would look to put him about 8th or 7th, and there's still a lot of time to gain throughout the rest of this lap. You would assume a lot of time in Sector 3, as that's where he messed his first lap, and potentially that killed his confidence going to the next lap. He is actually gone down in Sector 2, but it's just a straight. It's all right. It's what you do in Sector 3. It's how you finish the lap, as we saw with Max Verstappen in Monaco. I think it was 2022, 2023, down 2 tenths Fernando Alonso, and he gets the pole position out there. So, he's getting some traffic. Will that have visually impaired him? I'm not entirely sure, but he's coming through the last corner now. It seemed like a very tidy sector. What will it be as he comes through the line? It is not a big improvement whatsoever.
No, not a big improvement at all, but it does put him up into 8th fastest. Hermanza, he stays bottom of this field so far. What about Lucas Shea, who's now heading up to the line? The Bella puts himself up into 3rd. Here comes Shea, stays 5th fastest. Weren't able to find a big enough improvement. Conrad Bohm didn't make it to the line in time, did the Aston Martin, so he can only start at highest of 8th. That's disappointing for Thomas Enger as here comes his teammate Elia to line. Where does he go? 2nd fastest. Splits the 2 Shazoo drivers, and that's exactly what he needed to do. Ryan Gross up into 4th place now for ETA. Lovely stuff from him. What about Jonas Orpel, who's coming up to the line? Odin to 14th. Orpel stays 15th. Disappointment there, as now Joe Murphy moves himself back up onto the front row of the grid. Francesco Largo comes into the pit lane to retire the car, and he's not going to find any more time on this lap. So we'll look at now Raphael, who's invalidated his lap time. So things starting to look better and better here for Shazoo. Here comes Ariane Sanger, 9th fastest for him. Who else we got to the line? We got Nathan Polayan in the RSCV car. Daniel Hope goes 17th. Here comes Nathan up to the line, and that's a lap time. He's not going to finish. And just like how they ended the season with the title wrapped up, coming in, the reigning champions were surely the favourites, and they've started things off with a bang. It's Shazoo who lock out the front row of the grid, and this is how you start a title defence.
It is indeed. But can I just mention that gap between Ryan Grob and Arian Sanger? 6 cars split between just under a tenth. If you even look at until Rafael P8, that's 5 cars split between under half a tenth. It was very close to get into the second and third grid there. But it's SCI who absolutely get the biggest moment of qualifying, and yeah, they're going to be looking to turn this 1-2 in the qualifying into even big leads in the championship as they did in the first season, and it's undoubtedly what they want, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is indeed. As yeah, Shazoo, if you want to start off a title campaign, it's the way to it. There are talks of a potential lobby restart due to a lobby issue where lots of these drivers are unfortunately bugging on each other's screens. Or if we are going to get started at the moment. But your field for this evening's race is as followed. It is Francesco Largo on pole from his teammate Joe Murphy in second. Brilliant stuff from Shazoo. Tomasetto Alaya third. Ryan Grob fourth. Labella and Florian Van Zelter for TRT occupy P5 and 6. Then it's Shea, Rafael Sanger, Bohm rounds out your top 10, followed by Nando Moreira, Zalan Bieda, Spezzi, Jans Ferdlik, Odin, Orpel, Hope, Polayan, Alex, and Hamaz. As we now, of course, head on into the race and are going to have a on this one. I'm not too sure. I will confirm in a moment. And lots of these drivers are complaining of the bugs, but look at what we could. If it is a lobby restart here, Lucas, it will be a shame if we miss out on this weather.
Oh man, weather like this looks to be. Is it inter conditions? Into wet, it doesn't matter. Wet conditions always makes for a banging race, and it depends on what these teams have come up with wet setups as well. A lot of teams don't really work on their wet setups whatsoever. So we could see some big changes in the race. Obviously, you can always lose grip, lose your car, and then boom, you're into the wall. Safety cars come out, and it just completely changes the strategy. And it's just wet weather, as always, makes for the best races. If we get a restart and it's dry, I think we're going to be missing out on quite a bit, aren't we?
Certainly are. And we've got confirmation. VAR. No restarts. We have just had the confirmation. We are not going to have a lobby restart. And Lucas, we're not going to miss out on the wet weather conditions. Exactly what we want to hear.
Yes, that is exactly what we want to hear. Exactly. And I've just been foul-mouthed by Chris Samaraj in the driver's chat. That is just great, isn't it? But I was going to mention, as I saw there, Omar Adam, getting a P2, was it? He's going to be getting a lot of offers from teams now. Who knew that a manager could also become a driver? He's getting very hyped, even though he's not actually the one driving, and it is Joe Murphy. But you can dream. You can dream.
I mean, you never know. We could be saying it's Joe Murphy, but it is Omar. We don't know. We don't know who's actually behind that rig. But
we don't know. It could be.
It could be around Joe Murphy's house, and then they're just saying it's Joe Murphy. I don't know. But anyway, let's quickly talk through the circuit. Yeah, this for some reason only my camera's shown up, but let's onward. So of course we are here at Australia. Have the 14 facility. There is 3 DRS zones. No, 4 DRS zones around this circuit. It's 5.278 kilometers, 3.79 miles. course, you have the DRS zone down the main straight, up into turn 3, out of 8 all the way to turns 9 and 10, and then in and 11. But this, a very unique racing facility where it is, of course, a street circuit. As we head back over trackside. And Lucas, even though it's arguably one of the wider street circuits on the calendar, it's still one of the most challenging when it comes to overall track limits and also keeping it out of the wall.
Yeah, I mean, I can't lie, your mic did cut out for quite a bit of that. Do you mind repeating it for me? Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that, Lucas. I was just saying
It's all
about
good.
how this circuit, of course, being a street track, but it's one of the wider street circuits on the calendar. Where surprisingly, though, it's still quite difficult to keep it within track limits and keep it out of the wall.
Yeah, you do notice Australia that most cars end up by the end of the race with track limits, warnings, and penalties. It's a bit like Austria, where the track seems wide, but it's so easy to just step over the boundaries, especially when you're in a fast-paced circuit, especially like Australia is, where it's all high speed, mid-speed corners. You're never looking at very low speed, to be honest. And it looks like we are underway.
Yes, we are. We had the 5 red lights and we are underway, and it's been a disastrous start there for Joe Murphy. A brilliant one for Francesco Largo as he leads away off the line, sliding his way through the first couple of the corners. Thomas said to Eli has been able to jump Joe Murphy there, who's now under pressure from Ryan Grob. Just look at these conditions. And I think the majority of the drivers here are on the intermediate compounder tyres. This is definitely at the moment full wet conditions as we see the two TRT boys now go side by side through turn 4. That's Van Selter versus Labella. Drivers falling backwards as we make our way through now the end of this first sector. There's battles everywhere. You look, Daniel Hope's come from 17th to 12th at this current moment in time. We can't see drivers through the spray. That's Moreira off the road. Spezzi's retired from the race. He's out on lap 1. And we have a safety car to kick things off on the opening tour of the season. And we shall now look at the tyres the drivers are on. And I think, yes, everybody but Odin on the wet compound, on the intermediate compound of tyres. But for Joe Murphy there, Lucas, that was a disastrous race start. Yes, he's only lost 1 place, but he just didn't seem to get going from that start-finish line.
No, he seemed to really struggle there off the line. It's given Elia Tomasetta the opportunity now to go into P2, just what Tess want to see at the very start of the race. And he's gotten quite lucky there, to be fair, with the safety car. There seemed to be a big gap forming already in the first couple of corners between Francesco and P2 and P3. Also with the TRT cars, they seem to be about a second behind already. So some drivers will definitely be thankful that the safety car's already out. You don't want to be gapped already quite early on. That will just kill your confidence. And you're going to have to push to get back into distance, and that's just going to drain your ERS. So I think that this will be nice for a few drivers as we see Jans Verdlik and Odin coming into the pits, assuming probably, getting front wing change. So we did notice a little crash back there. I'm assuming that had something to do with Spezzi's retirement as well. And yeah, that was a very, very impactful start to the race, wasn't it?
Certainly was indeed. Unfortunately for Spezzi, we just saw cars all the way across the road. We didn't know who was where, just couldn't see through the spray. But now let's have a look at your position changes. Who's your biggest winner? Who is your biggest loser? Is actually both Sverdlik and Odin. They've both gone down 4 places respectively. Biggest gainers are both Hope and Nathan Paline, both up 5 places. And also another good start there for Hamanza, up 4 from last on the grid. Unfortunately, he's one who retired. Of course, we see Van Selter and the Bella did actually switch places off the line. We saw that battle go all the way through the end of the first sector. And then also Zalan Bieda down 2 places from where he started. Just these conditions, they're so tricky, especially if you've not done any practice, aren't they, Lucas? Of course, you don't know what the car's going to do. And with it being pretty much full wet conditions, that will turn into at this stage, it's just about survival.
Yeah, it truly is. Wet conditions. A lot of teams, because obviously wet time trial got taken away a few games ago. You don't really see people practicing wet races whatsoever. And if they're doing Grand Prix, they're practicing the dry. So yeah, it's nice to see who actually has that wet weather pace, who has that inbuilt talent, the precision to drive in these conditions. What teams can make the best setups for these conditions? It's very varying to what you would see in the dry. But yeah, I say the biggest loser here is obviously Joe Murphy. If you're in these conditions, if you're P1 and P2 as a team, you can make a combined effort to stay there, make sure no. But now that Joe Murphy's conceded the position to Elliot Tomasetto, he can even look at overtaking Francesco. And yeah, Joe Murphy's not going to be able to do much to stop that at all, are they?
Are not going to do much. Of course, you mentioned this really does split the men from the boys. This is where real driver skill come in play. Have to play a game at all times. The car can snap from you at any given moment. To make sure you have that smooth driving style. That's what works best in these conditions. Keep it nice and smooth as we got this safety car restart. About to get underway here on lap 3 of 29. Going to get back to full green flag racing on lap 4 as the counter ticks over to lap 4. We'll be back underway with the everybody just snaking their way through here at this turns 9 and 10 chicane. And now we see Francesco Largo become the new Bernd Mailander, don't we, Luke?
Indeed, I'm looking at the driver's chat right now. Tests are complaining that they cannot drive and that everyone's teleporting left to right. Could this be a big problem for them? Currently in P2 and P10, in conditions to be lagging, you want to be able to see everything happen because a little snap of your car, another car, and you're in the barrier. So that will be interesting to see if Tess can battle through that. But it looks like Francesco is now already throttle on, getting ready to go, and he's pulling out to the right. As we see, there's quite a big gap forming already between the two TRT cars. But let's just see how the safety car restart plays out.
Yes, let's see how it goes, and we go racing once again here in Australia. It's a brilliant restart from Francesco Largo. He played an absolute blinder with that one. He caught Tomasetto Elia somewhat napping, and he was able to pull out a half a second advantage. Don't expect that many overtakes at this stage of the race. These drivers are just looking and learning at this current moment in time. As you can just see them all drift through turn 5. That was a lovely camera shot we have just seen. For Francesco Largo, he's just eking ever further clear. Now head through that middle part of the lap. Everybody around about half a second away from each other. The closest cars on the circuit are probably Labella and Lucas Shea, as we see the Ferrari start to hustle down on that Mercedes. Of course, Labella, he had a poor start to things, dropped behind his teammate Florian Van Selter. Lucas Shea, he's trying to make his way up to the back of Labella so far, who's now nearly a second away from his teammates.
Indeed. Lucas Shea here seems to be not struggling as much as Valentino Labella. We could be seeing a move potentially between P6 and P7 in the next couple of laps. So let's see what's going on there. Rafael also very close to the rear of Arian, as is Conrad to the back of Rafael. Both of these drivers for their respective teams, they should be higher up. Tess and FER are contenders, sure. And when your drivers are barely even in point scoring positions, you do have to think, is this bad for them? Is this bad for their confidence? Is this just going to give SCI more of a lead? Especially as you look, Francesco's open at 1.4 second gap to P2 already in just, what, a lap and a half since the safety car restart? So it looks like SCI might very well be in for the second constructors in a row, as we see Rafael tagging the wall there. I don't know if he got damage off of that, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, interesting indeed. And Francesco Largo, yeah, he's really took these conditions nicely. And now we're going to seeing the drivers, of course, tested it. Of course, at the start as well, is they're trying to learn the conditions, trying to see where the grip is, and also just with the fact the conditions change lap by lap. The grip gets worse. I say, oh, look at that. Jonas Orpel, nearly round there, was actually saved by Zalan Bieda, who pushed him back into the right direction. And now he's under attack from Hamaza, as we now see them all side by side. And Williams gets forced wide. So with that was Alex, who also got forced wide in the process. Here comes Jans Ferdlich, who's been able to get past the Williams driver of Hamanza. That's now to the inside, or is the Williams driver to kick Sauber back to the inside of Odin? Can he get this move done? Oh, and into the wall goes the other IRT driver, and that's Hamanza now surely picking up some front wing damage. And unfortunately for IRT, in the opening 5 laps, both the drivers have hit the wall, but luckily only one of them have gone out, not the pair of them. That surely will put a big issue into Hamanza's race. But it was all clean racing up until that moment. Yes, drivers got forced a little bit wide, but it was decent racing at that time. But on the front of the field now, we're seeing Joe Murphy all over the back of Eli, who's really dropped off the pace.
Yeah, 2 seconds already. You gotta wonder. I'm pretty sure Elia is a controller driver. And when you are a controller driver, it is obviously much more difficult to race in these conditions when you have to be so precise on the throttle, on the grip, on everything. And it looks like Joe Murphy's all over the back. He might be looking for an overtake here. Where is he going to go? He goes to the outside, brakes a little bit later. Can he get the extra grip all the way around the outside? And Elia just decides to concede the position there. And now Ryan Grob might even be looking to get the position himself, but just stays back for now, not shooting any big dive bombs. And yeah, that is now an SCI 1-2 again, but that gap is massive, but I don't think it matters. They're both on the same team. It's just all to do with Joe Murphy can now hold this position and whether Francesco can coast to a win, because it looks like it's going to be quite comfortable.
Yes, it certainly does look quite comfortable for Francesco Largo. Not sure if we're going to need a pit stop. I think we might stop in the race.
Yeah, we're probably going to be Yeah, teams pitting 13 to 14 laps in, maybe even a little bit earlier, 12 or 11. But you want to be pitting at about equal halfway through. Well, I don't know if there's going to be any later on. Obviously, if there's dry conditions, then the timing becomes a lot different. But if it's going to be a wet race, then yeah, you just want just a slight undercut. The tire degradation is quite heavy on this game, so you don't want to be making any large strategy choice, don't you?
You don't want to be making bold on the strategy front. Don't make too bold calls, as we now may potentially see Ryan Grob pass Thomas Setuela at the exact same place Joe Murphy did. Oh, the McLaren driver has to stay behind. He wasn't close enough for that lunge to the side. Of course, you can't brake as late for an overtake in these wet weather conditions. I have to just bide your time and really draw alongside before you hit the braking zone. Eli went a little bit wide on entry there, but to hold on to the place, as we are starting to see some gaps form, especially between Ariane Sanger and Luke Shea. That gap around about 2 seconds. Ferrari and the Haas driver, and Joe Murphy a half seconds behind us. We have a constant yellow flag in Sector 2, even though no one is in Sector 2, so I'm not sure why we have that. But for Ryan Grob, still no progress being made. Good exit at a turn 8 if he wants to try and get this move done into the chicane.
Yeah, he's asking for this overtake. He's asked for the overtake multiple times. Must have been 5 times by now, but no, he just can't. He's just got to stay behind, conserve his ERS, and go for a move on a straight. And yeah, just kind of just coast his way, just inching closer and closer and closer until he gets there. But for now, he's just going to have to sit in behind. There seems to be, yeah, as you said, a lot of gaps opening from now on. So yeah, we're just mostly going to have to wait until the pit stop window, aren't we? As Ryan has a little bit of a slide. But yeah.
We're going to have to wait until that pit stop window for any chances of overtakes happening, especially a little bit further back down the field where we see Polayan, Bieda, all around about a second to 2 seconds away from one another. That was all thanks to that wobbling we saw a little bit earlier on. Now, Rob going to be close enough? No, he is not. Of course, Francesco Largo is still leading the way. He's seconds clear. Joe Murphy just puts in the fastest lap of this Grand Prix. Oh, and that's a big moment as well. Joe Murphy picks up 3 seconds for time penalties. The first track limit offence of the evening when it comes to the penalties. And it's the man currently second place in this race. He'll need drivers around him to also drop a couple of track limit penalties. Of course, it's a big factor, not only in the dry, but even worse in the wet here, Lucas. First person to fall is the man second place, currently occupying that Shazoo 1-2.
Yeah, 9 laps in and you've already got a penalty. That's not going to be a great look. Obviously, this might push the drivers behind to really start going on the attack, really start dragging these tyres to their maximum. But I think it's really mainly going to depend on if Ryan can get past here. I think if Elias stays in the position he is in P3, I think that the gap is just going to keep growing and that penalty won't be worth anything by the end of the race. So, yeah, it's just seeing what Joe Murphy can do here. But I was going to say as well, we're seeing fastest lap after fastest lap, lap after lap. So if you're seeing fastest lap after fastest lap, that kind of tells you the track is getting faster. Could it be getting more dry? Who knows?
That dry line really starting to form. And we just saw Conrad Bohm get past Raphael for that 9th place as you see Largo dropping in the fastest lap of the race. Thomas said to a liar over the course of his previous lap, it's found about a second compared to Joe Murphy. He has put his foot down. Potentially was just saving in the first part of this stint. Now starting to push that car and its tyre. Conrad Bohm now trying to hunt down Ariane Sanger, who's 3/10 shy of Luke Shea. Ryan Grob's dropped off the back of Thomas Setualea and is now potentially going to fall into the clutches of Florian Van Selter. Of course, both TRT cars occupy P5 and P6. This is where the trains really do start to form. Of course, for that first sector, Joe Murphy has found a little bit of time over Tomasetto, but this is where you get those swings and roundabouts. Is one lap, one driver gains, and in the next lap, the other one puts the foot down and gains that little bit of time back, and they get into this little bit of a stalemate.
Indeed, as we see Florian tried to make a move there on Ryan. I think that was on turn 9, the little going into the chicane there, couldn't quite pull it off. But well, from what I'm seeing here, Elliott's got a much lower wing setup. So, Ryan's off the track there. He's going to lose positions to both the TRT drivers there.
Well, that's a big moment there.
Even
for
Lucas
Ryan
Shea
Grob.
as well. Wow, that was, yeah, wow. Could you fault someone for that?
Oh, I think it was just bold racing from the pair of them, but potentially just Van Selter going a little bit too hot on the brakes and forcing the McLaren off the road. That's one of those moments where, of course, the conditions play a factor in determining who's at fault. But I do believe potentially Van Selter just pushing that a little bit too aggressively, diving it to the inside, and I think it was one of those. Brian was turning in, Florian was up the inside, and yeah, it was just bound to happen. I think that would be more of Florian, but I still believe that was a racing in.
Yeah, indeed. But as I was trying to mention before that whole movement occurred, that Elias seems to be gaining a lot on the straights, which means he has a very low wing setup compared to the two SCIs. So you gotta wonder if this track starts getting drier and drier, that Elia might have the pace on both the SCIs with the lower wings, with the much more dry setup compared to probably quite a stable, safe, high wing setup that the SCIs are running. And Elia Tomasetto is actually doing quite a good job. He's gained 4/10 in that last lap, and he's really cutting that gap. And Joe Murphy has to be wary because at any point, that penalty could drop him a few positions.
Certainly could do, as now Nathan Polayan picks up a 3-second time penalty as he now of course, is the next victim of those track limits warnings, as we see Omar Adam, of course, Joe Murphy, now 2.8 behind his teammate, and Thomas Neto still within that 2-second window as the Bella is around about 3 seconds behind. Now, head through into the middle sector on lap 12 of 29, so we're nearly reaching that halfway stage of the race. So around about lap 14 to 15. Guys be able to hold on that little bit more. Of course, the track drying as each lap ticks by. Of course, for Francesco Largo, who leads the way, we've not spoke about him too much, to be fair. He's just been slowly putting in those laps, lap after lap. He's just quicker and quicker, slowly building that gap over Joe Murphy. But he can just, of course, with it being Murphy behind him as well here, Lucas, Francesco has that opportunity to slowly bring race into his hands and just take it easy, and he's not worried about any threat behind at the moment.
No, but you got to think if the team game's going to come to it, because Joe Murphy, obviously, with that penalty, if Francesco starts slowing down and Joe Murphy catches up with that time penalty, is he going to have to let him pass potentially and then be kind of vulnerable to Elia and the TRT cars behind? It's just he wants to keep this pace up. He seems to be quite comfortably gaining a tenth or two every lap, every now and then losing a tenth. But no, the gap seems to be comfortably staying here. But I do think that Joe Murphy needs to pick up the pace, as he does seem to have done, or as Elia has dropped quite a bit in the last 2 laps. So yeah, SCI just going to be looking to bring this home, aren't they? There's another time penalty here now for Alex Oceanis for Onobi. Yeah, obviously street circuit, and another one,
Oh,
another one, two.
Tomasetto picks up a 3-second time penalty. It was drivers at the back of the field. Of course, everybody scores points if you finish. But it was everybody at the back of the field. But now Tomasetto Elia picks up a 3-second time penalty. And unfortunately for the Aston Martin, who was trying to put that pressure onto Joe Murphy to, of course, force him to potentially into another mistake, even another penalty. For Tomasetto, he's fallen victim to his own pushing. And over the course of this previous lap, Joe Murphy, who's just set the fastest lap of this Grand Prix, has found a second compared to Tomasetto Elia. And for Tomasetto, that now puts him under pressure from Valentino Labella, who's found about half a second on this previous tour. So Shazoo definitely seemed like the quickest cars in these conditions. But now this battle for P3 really has opened up. Now brought in the likes of Van Selter Labella, Shea, and also Ryan Grob into the equation.
Yes, it has, and Elia he's gonna have to start picking the pace. But the problem with picking up the pace is you go from a 3-second penalty to potentially second one, and then at that point you're done, aren't you? But yeah, the TRTs really have to capitalize here, work as a team to both try and get within that 3-second window, maybe even keep Lucas Shea out of it if possible. They would love to be doing that, but yeah, it's just going to have to be a team job here to try and get both of them into P3 and P4 as a team, getting themselves the second most possible points you can get since SCI first and second. If they go third and fourth, then they're looking to be the number one competitors to the Shazoo team, aren't they?
Certainly are indeed going to be number one competitors at this current moment. Nobody's still electing to go into pit lane, as we are on now lap 14 of 29. I will move that CES logo in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Game in a moment's time, but Conrad Bohm now comes into pit lane, so we have our first driver into the pits, man, who was running 9th place in this race, so in a decent. And now that 9th place will turn to 18th, but he's trying that undercut. See what Conrad will do, as I'll quickly just pause the game without this CES logo. So drivers what they are going to be able to do.
We're back down over what? I got Casper Flack asking for tyres. Everyone's on the Inters and they're all the same age. Two drivers pitted at the start of the race, but they're at the back. So, yeah, tyre not an issue whatsoever.
Try and keep that's course home. Only driver so far of come in lane.
Yeah, I'm being told that it's not going to dry up. So, like, yeah, the pit stops will be coming around now. Obviously, you might be able to stretch the tyres a little bit more since that safety car would have saved them some degradation. But yeah, it looks like it's just going to be the usual strategy here.
For some reason, letting me change yes logo. I'm not too sure on that. I'll try and find a fix as we can. But while we've been gone, Alex has picked up a 3-second time penalty. Joe Murphy set the fastest lap and he's really closing into his teammate of Francesco Largo. That gap now 1.5. As we now see, of course, bring up the tyres and see if anybody else has come into pit lane. Yes, we have. It's Nathan Line who's also come into pits and Amanza as well. Look at that gap between Bohm and Perline, a total of 15 seconds as we see a battle now between Jonas Orpel and Alex as they now squabble their way through. Joe Murphy sets another fastest lap, and we said it was looking comfortable for Francesco Largo here. Of course, Lucas. Yes, they're part of the same team, but at the moment for Shazoo, it's Joe who's the quicker driver.
It is indeed, but it doesn't matter who's the fastest driver as long as they're both this far in front of the field. I mean, Francesco's what, 5.1 seconds in front of the nearest real competitor, and the nearest real competitor has a penalty. So yeah, it's just comfortable for Francesco. If he needs to let Joe Murphy go past, he can easily let him pass. It's not really going to affect him at all when the only points you really care about are team points, not driver points. So
Points the care about. Of course, it's not a driver's standings, it's all about the team standings. Now, let's make our way onto lap 7. Are we going to see any more drivers started in pit lane? As we actually might see a move from Raphael here on Ariang Sang around the outside from the Red Bull.
ooh,
A
beautiful
brilliant move through turn 9 on Sanger, who was holding on to that position quite nicely. But now Raphael has been let off the reins from behind Conrad Bohm. Pulls off a spectacular move through turn 9. Move himself now up into that 8th place. 4 seconds to Ryan Grob in front as we see Thomas Setualaya now into pit lane.
Yeah, there we go. Here the pit stops coming now. Great overtake from Rafael. You guys know that's my son. Very proud of him, you know. I give him a little nickname. I used to call him SS, Super Speed, and he's proven it there with that overtake. That was beautiful. But yeah, no, if Elia coming out the pits, there has a bit of a tank slapper. That was interesting, but comes out just behind Daniel Hop. He's got 2 seconds there. Daniel Hop will probably be pitting soon, so hopefully this isn't a problem for Elia. But yeah, it's not great if you're coming out not too far behind traffic, you know. You really want to have clean air if you're coming out the pits. So yeah, we'll see if TRT can benefit from Elia being held behind, but I think that the gap is comfortable and should be fine.
Fine, it's 1.3 seconds. He won't have too much of an effect with that. And of course, going to see what TRT do. Do they box one of the drivers now, or do they just keep out for longer? Try and go for this overcut now. Head right-hander and into final sector at the front of the field. Joe Murphy's brought that gap down to Francesco Largo. 2-1 second. The better Van Selter, Shea and Grob all stay out for one more, and everybody else is doing the same. Guy's going really long here. Someone said to Elia, of course, came into the pit lane. But will those older tyres, if these guys do come, when these guys do come into pit lane of Elia, pay dividends to him falling through the field, as Sanger, cutting that first corner, unfortunately picks up a 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, I mean, he's 4 seconds in front of Nando there, so it should not overly affect him. Conrad bombed there with the fastest lap. Both of the test drivers coming into the pits these last few laps, though they're clearly going for an undercut. They're gonna have the fastest tires now, but front guys not having pitted yet, they will be able to really put the pace on the test guys by the end of the race. And this looks like Elia's now catching up to Daniel. If he can't overtake here, then TRT they're gonna be in a very good position. But no, he lets them pass.
They would be, but yes, letting Thomas Elia through is Daniel Hope. And what Thomas said, thank you very much. I'll get on my merry way. Now hunting down Nando Moreira, who could actually do his teammates quite a solid job. Able to hold off the Aston Martin, of course, in that squabble with the likes of the RT drivers and also Luke as well. And see what Moreira does as we see Raphael into pit lane. He's coming in to the pits, so we'll see where he comes out in relation to everybody else. But with the likes of Joe Murphy, Francesco Largo staying out longer and longer, as Raphael's gone onto the wet, so I think that's been a mistake there. So for Raphael, he might just bleed more and more time. But are we going to potentially see Shazoo, TRT, and Lucas Shea try and go to the end here, Lucas?
Yeah, we're gonna see what I don't think they're gonna try and go to the end. I think they're gonna be in puncture territory by then. But if they are gonna go to the ends and they don't get a puncture, then they're in a beautiful position here. If Nando keeps holding up Elia as well here, it's gonna be very big for Lucas as well, who, you know, 5th place right now. He's looking very good, but Nando needs to think about his race as well as Lucas's race. And he needs to be wary that there are 2 test cars chasing him. Now Elia gonna go down the inside into the chicane. I don't think Nando can fight that. He's got so much speed on him. It wasn't gonna be easy to hold him back, was it?
It wasn't going to be easy at all. It was straight through as we now see Largo into pit lane. So this is a big, big moment in this race. Of course, Elia, who's had a 2-lap undercut compared to Francesco Largo. So the other drivers into pit lane now. Where does Thomas Elia come out in relation to your race leader?
I think he's going to be just behind. Yeah.
I would say 2 seconds behind. Are we going to say from Thomas Elia? Yeah, around about 2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 or 3,
gap.
yeah.
Yeah, 1.8. They come out of the pit lane. But that now puts Joe Murphy under a little bit of pressure here as well, Lucas, because he's now potentially going to come out into the path or behind Thomas Elia, with both having 3-second time penalties.
Yeah, that is true. I'm currently checking in with what's going on. Why did Rafi seem to go on the wets? Apparently it was just a game bug because he tried to go on the mediums. The dries apparently seem to be hypothetically faster here. So yeah, the track is clearly getting drier and drier and drier. The delta indicates that the softs are quicker. Not the softs, but the drier compound of tires. And yeah, it seems like FBR have been shafted quite a bit there. Yeah, it's just not great when the game bugs you out and you end up looking at being P18 instead of P10 or P9 or the places he was previously. So it's just not great when you're competing for money, is it? But as we see Joe Murphy into the pits now, where's he going to come out?
That is a bit moment as we are on board with Thomas Setualo has just set the fastest lap of this race. There's Joe Murphy to the inside. Oh, and just
Oh, what a
finding
switchback.
the space. He just was able to thread the needle there, was Thomas Setualo. And we see Joe Murphy now fall into the clutches of the Aston Martin. And the Shazoo 1-2 has been separated here as the Bella and Grob have stayed out longer. Are they trying to go to the end? I think it's the only hope if they want a podium here as they go to the end of this race. But for Thomas Setualo, what a move that was.
Yeah, that was an incredible move there. It's kind of like a little switchback there. But here's the problem. He's on 4-lap old tires. Can he hold um, Joe Murphy behind him for the next 6 or 7 laps? I don't think it's going to be very easy. His tire wear will be quite a lot more. But if he has the pace to hold him off for 6, 7 laps, then yeah, it's going to be looking good for Leah Tomasetto as both of them have 3-second penalties here. But it looks like Joe Murphy really wants to get his position here. Faked going to the inside, didn't quite commit, but yeah, he's going to be all over the back of Leah. His tires must be warming up as well, getting to the right temperature. And I think the next 1 or 2 laps, he's really going to put the hammer on Leah.
I think he's certainly indeed. And this circuit is actually starting to look bone dry. So I'm not surprised Raphael thought those slicks could be quicker. Because just look at this, Lucas. On board here with Valentino Labella, there's only a little bit of residue left on the circuit. So I'd say give it a couple of laps. We could be to slick running. And is that what Labella and Grob are trying to stay out for here? As we see Alex into pit lane. This is a big call. Is it slicks or is it inters?
What is he
It's
changing
slick
for?
tyres. It's medium
It's
compounder
slicks.
tyres. Are we going to see other drivers follow suit, or is it just a little bit too soon?
No, I think that this will be the time now to change. As I said, the Delta looks like, you know, it looks like what FVR were assuming that the dry compounds was going to be quicker, and it looks like Valentino Labella and Ryan have both gambled on that. But the question is, because they've stayed on so many laps on those inter tires, as you see, Valentino Labella's already on Ryan, even with having PIDs, and he's now overtaken him even. Will this be the right strategy? Will the mediums be big enough to cut the gap that they've lost out by staying out for this long? You do have to wonder, as Valentino Labella hasn't quite pitted this lap, neither will Ryan. So they might not even be paying for slicks. They might just be trying to stay out the whole race. Who knows?
That could be the call from TRT and also ETA. And now we see Nando Moreira into pit lane. Alex is now actually starting to be a little bit quicker than his teammate. I think that time has come. The medium tyres, I think, are your call. And Moreira has gone onto those tyres and he trundles out of pit lane. What about Alex as he's fighting away with Raphael? I think he went deep into the corner and he got onto the gravel. But these are some big moments in this race. Late race drama here in Australia. Are those medium tyres quicker than the intermediates, or is it just not going to be enough? That is the big question. As Raphael picks up 10 seconds for speeding into the pit lane, and his race goes from bad to worse as he now retires. When it rains, it certainly does pour. But for Moreira, he's struggling a little bit on traction, but I think once you fire up that tyre, it is a very good race tyre.
Yeah, it's all about getting the temperature in the tires. When you're in still very cold and humid track, even though the Delta says they're faster, for the first few moments, it's obviously going to be slow until you get the right temperature in. But looking at that Delta, seems to be staying fairly still, even gaining a little bit of time on Daniel. But yeah, I think the next lap or two will definitely the slicks will be the right choice. But I just don't know how much quicker they will be. Ryan now into the pits. Will he put on the mediums, maybe even the softs? Let's find out.
Find out right now. Here comes Ryan Grob onto mediums. Surprised no one's
Yep,
going onto the
mediums.
softs because not many left to go. And of course, every
Indeed.
position is points, no matter what people are scoring. And into the pit lane as well comes Conrad Bohm. They're all switching to those slick compounded tyres. And Nando Moreira has moved himself up into 9th. And he is starting to pull away from Jans Verdlich. Labella still leads the way. As Conrad Bohm picks up... I think he can get that removed, though. And same with Daniel Hope. I think they can get that removed. I don't think as long as it's safe, I think that 10 seconds removed. So maybe not too much to worry about there for Daniel and Conrad Bohm. What does the likes of the Bella do at the front of this field as we have a yellow flag? I'm not sure who that's for. Is it for Odin? No. Or was it for potentially Daniel Hope, who's dropped down the order? He's in 16th. Potentially had a moment. As we look back at Valentino Labella as he makes his way through the final sector. Look how dry this circuit is. Surely it's time for slicks.
I think so indeed. Nando Moreira has gained just under 3 seconds on that lap. I don't know if they can make up the gap of the pits. I think it's about 22 seconds here. I don't know if they can make that up in 4 laps that we have remaining, but I think that TRT have played this very well there with Labella. Same with ETA playing with Ryan Grob. I think they will be able to gain some track positions, and when every position is points, that really comes into play.
It certainly does, as Joe Murphy has now just got past Thomas Seto Elia, or has he? They're side by side through turn 4. There's contact between the pair. A big slide for Joe Murphy. And Elia lives to see another day in second place, as crucially Moreira sets the fastest lap of this Grand Prix, closely followed by Zalan Bieda. So Labella, over to you to see what you can do in terms of this race. But I don't think it's going to be enough at this current moment in time. Will DRS be enabled ever so shortly to maybe aid Joe Murphy on his quest to get past Thomas Seto Elia, as he's all over the back of him through the left and right of turns 9 and 10. He's going to use that slipstream, use that battery to catch up to the back of the Aston Martin. He's just not close enough. But when are they going to enable DRS? Surely it's going to be any minute now.
Yeah, you have to think that the track is dry enough for DRS, but obviously you have to wait a little bit as Joe Murphy sends it down the inside. Contact. Elia nearly spins round, but there's yellow flags on the track. Is that a safety car?
No, I think it's a virtual safety car. No, it is a safety car. Oh, it's
Oh,
Polayan and Alex.
Now this might be, yeah, the SCI have come out in front of the safety car.
Oh, that was crucial. That was crucial they got out in front. Or that would have been SCI, who have dominated this race in tears.
Yeah, but now you gotta wonder, with all these tire swaps now being made,
actually, no.
Could we see some big moves at the end?
Oh my God, Joe Murphy!
20-second time penalty. Is that a drive-through?
That is 20 seconds to Joe Murphy for speeding under the safety car. That is huge. Wait. Hang on.
That is not what you want to hear after leading 1-2 basically the whole race, is it?
Hang on. Also, people in the chat, is it me? I swear a safety car couldn't come out at this point. It's lap 27 of 29.
Yeah.
And
yeah, actually, no, you're right.
The game usually allows 1-2 laps of racing.
Oh, it's 20 seconds because game can't give drive-through last 3 laps. But that is strange. Yeah, I did not think the safety car come out at this point. I'm assuming it's just gonna go back into the pits for the last lap no matter what.
Yeah, I think so. Or did it think potentially that, of course, it would beat the Alpines out of the pit lane?
Yeah, I think you're right in saying that. It was quite far ahead, so I think the game would instantly assume that. Obviously, it didn't, so that's probably what's happened there.
We're going to have to see what happens.
Bug the game out a little bit.
We could see a bit of a touchy subject, but an Abu Dhabi 2021 here, where it ends on the final lap. And I'm surprised there, Francesco Largo didn't go on the softs. Surely that's the obvious choice with 1 lap of racing.
Yeah, you got to think about the tire temperatures as well, to be fair, but maybe they just don't have any new softs used up. They might have used them all during.
Yes, they did.
Qualifying.
They did use them.
And we said
TRT made a blinder with Labella. He's in the next second place.
Yeah, I think it's paid off perfectly here.
Let's bring up the penalties.
Can't get that removed. Joe Murphy, 23 seconds penalty. Now with the safety car, he might be dropping to dead last by the time the race is done. Thankfully, Conrad and Daniel both have penalties, but we don't know if they can get it removed or can't because it was crossing the exit line. They might be removed, and after leading, well, not leading, but being second and third the whole race, it's just slipped away from him for a silly mistake of just speeding over the delta. It's such a rookie mistake. And I'm sure that the whole SCI team is infuriated by that, as they're going to be dropping major points in this championship so early on. But yeah, it looks like, as we said before, the safety car will give them one lap of racing. I don't think some of the back cars are going to even reach for Joe Murphy. But yeah, I think that Francesco is going to have to go soon because he does not want those back cars to reach the pack.
Certainly does not. Apologies for that language, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, and see what Francesco Largo does do as a new Burn Mylander with 1 lap of racing to go. When does he decide to put his foot to the floor? And it's now. So Francesco Largo gets us back underway, and we go racing for the final lap of this Grand Prix. He's got a brilliant start over Tomasetto Elia. Will bring the tyres back up as another penalty. And that's a penalty to Francesco Largo. So for Shazoo, in the final few laps, it has all crumbled away from them. As now Valentino Labella might now be in the most unlikeliest of situations, if you said this 10 laps ago, to win the Grand Prix. Lucas Shea is overtaken by Joe Murphy, and there's contact with him and Ryan Grob, as we see Florian Van Seltzer tries to now get a move done as well, and the Ferrari not able to do so thus far. But I think we're seeing a little bit of hold-up play from Joe Murphy to keep his teammate on the podium. Odin picks up a 3-second time penalty. Here comes Lucas Shea on Ryan Grob. What's going to happen here? Here comes Van Seltzer steaming around the outside. Is he going to be able to put it off? No, he is not. Elia not going to be close enough, you would think, for a move there. On to Francesco Largo. There's catastrophes at the back of the field. We're keeping on board with this lot, though, as they make their way through the final couple of corners. As actually we've just seen so many drivers jump up and down places, but from the most unlikeliest of positions, it is going to be Largo who leads us across the line to take the victory, but TRT have played a blinder. It's the Bella who wins here in Australia. A dramatic race. He weathered the storm beautifully as Lucas Shea finishes 4th in the end. What a performance that was. What a race that was. And for Valentino Labella and for TRT, they start their championship campaign with a bang. And it's them who take the race victory in what was the most unlikeliest of circumstances. You had not thought that would have happened on the safety car restart. What a race.
Yeah, things went from bad to worse in the span of minutes. One single safety car, and what looked to be a 1-2 domination from qualifying to the race. And I don't even think SCR are the lead. They're not. I think that they might even be 4th or 3rd here. That it couldn't have gone worse in the last few laps. It really could not have. Francesco lost out on possibly the easiest victory of his life by a single warning.
A single mistake has just costed SCI race. Potentially also the top 2 spots in the championship. Your order is as follows. It's the Bella from Largo, Elia, Shea, Van Seltzer, Grobs, Verdlick, Bieda, Sanger, Moreira or Opal, Odin, Hope, Bohm, Murphy, Paline, Alex, Raphael, Hamaza, and also Spezzi, who round out the field. Of course, those results are provisional as we head back to mine and Lucas. Beautiful faces. Yeah, that was an insane final lap. I think TRT now take the lead the championship after this first round. Those results from Van Zelter and also Labella. But I think when it of course Shazoo's misfortunes ends up in TRT's favor and their fortune. Just that final lap was so good, and it's just so difficult to analyze everything what just happened there.
Yeah, the amount of chaos in the last lap of racing, and even 2 laps under the safety car. From the second it started drawing up, it was just pure chaos on every part of the track. The midfield, even the back markers, they were just going up, down, and it was honestly one of the greatest races I've ever witnessed. What an absolute great season opener. SCI not feeling the same way we are. But yeah, great race from TRT, great strategy, perfectly played. Valentina Labella says he's washed, but he's washed out of victory. That's what he has, because that was a full strategy by TRT, and they should be proud of that one.
Yeah, they certainly should. I mean, that wouldn't have came into play if they did not keep him out long at that first stint, because they would have just fell back with the likes of his teammate Van Selter behind Joe Murphy, but they kept him out long. They then put him onto those mediums. He had a lap or two to then just go full push, and he was able to jump Joe Murphy by the barest of margins under that safety car. And yeah, it was so well timed, so well managed. And as we mentioned, track limits play a big factor. It comes down to not picking them up, and that's exactly what he did. He did a clean, consistent, and just overall, he flew under the radar for a majority of that race. And then when it came to when it mattered, he just performed exactly like he needed to. He just knew he needed that 3 seconds of Largo.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That was perfectly played. As we mentioned, we could not have underestimated even how important those penalties were going to be. We knew they were going to be important. We didn't know it was going to be that important. And Valentino Labella, where did he start? Was it P6, I think? P5, around that?
P5. 5.
P5. So yeah, went under the radar, as you said, the whole race. We weren't really looking at him. He wasn't making any moves. He even lost out position to Florian, I'm pretty sure, at the start. And then in the end, he won. And that's all that matters, isn't it? It's about how you finish.
Certainly is. About how fast you start, it's about how fast you finish. That check flag first. But I don't think we're going to get any interviews from these drivers. So before we head off, thank you for calendar for this season. So, started off here at Australia. We'll move over to Japan next week before a trip to Canada, Texas, Belgium to round off 2025. So they're the opening 5 rounds of this. And then we'll have the Christmas break of before we return on the 6th of January in the new year at Austria. Will then be followed up by Silverstone, Azerbaijan, Mexico before another break week. So another 4 rounds before we head into a week off. And then to end off the season, head to the 24th of Feb, Vegas, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia at end of that season. It should be quite an eventful season. Plenty of circuits for overtaking. Lucas, what one stands out to you? What one's your favourite?
I have to say Azerbaijan, what doesn't go wrong in an Azerbaijan race? There's so many places you can crash. And as we saw, Australia is a street circuit, so is Azerbaijan. Australia's given us some fantastic racing, and I think Azerbaijan will do the same. Long strips, nice, tight, windy corners, a castle section that everyone crashes at, and what's bound to be lots of safety cars. I think that will be a worthwhile race to watch.
It really is going to be a race to watch. It's not on many calendars either, so just adds to that little bit of a challenge where drivers are heading in that unknown. I think fantastic season coming our way. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it from me and Lucas in the commentary box. Before we head off, Lucas, is there any last words from you before we round things off?
Nah, I think that I'm honestly lost for words after that race.
It was certainly a spectacle to behold. But join us next week as we make our way over to Suzuka for what should be another absolute classic Champions, powered by ABS. And also, this broadcast would not be possible if it wasn't for Drive Line Media. Shout out to them as well. But thank you all very much for watching. This would not be possible without you guys either. The drivers, the teams, possible at all. But thank you all, everyone, for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and we shall see you next time out at 7 p.m. EMT. See you there. Thank you, and bye-bye.